think a new team has arrived in the AFC West, and their name is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
Herbert stops, launches deep. Jalen Guyton, he's got it!
Herbert fires open, making the grab. Mike Williams down the sideline. 17-yard line, look out again.
Carr, intercepted!
And we're back with another episode of Shock Therapy Podcast. It's just going to be me today. I'm going to talk a little bit about this Titans game and then preview our Colts matchup. The Chargers took down the Titans 17-14. This is a huge, huge game for them to win. It just about solidifies their chances of making the playoffs with only the Colts, Denver, and Rams left on their schedule. All teams with losing records. And this game going up against a team that's really looking like they're out of their way of the playoffs, or there's a really good possibility that the Jaguars actually end up making playoffs over the Titans. The Chargers also hold tiebreakers with the Titans and the Dolphins. And with only those three remaining games against the Rams, Colts, and Broncos, it's a really, really good place for the Chargers to be in. They're sitting 8-6. Second in the AFC West. I think they're only trailing the Ravens in the AFC wildcard picture. So with one more win against one of these three teams with a losing record, the Chargers should make the playoffs. Justin Herbert didn't have his greatest game, 28-42, 313 yards, no touchdowns. He did have two interceptions. One was an outstanding play by Roger McCreary, who ended up jumping out of the end zone outside on the sideline, throws the ball backwards back into the goal line and ended up getting intercepted on that pass. It was really not a bad pass by Justin Herbert, kind of throwing it where only his guy has a chance to make it or get out of bounds. Just a heads up play by Roger McCreary to go and just make an outstanding play there. Justin Herbert did take 3 sacks for 22 yards. Just kind of an off day for him. The other interception was just a bad decision. Kevin Byard jumped in front of the ball, ended up coming up with a huge takeaway. It was really kind of a defensive game for the Chargers. Kind of surprising about Justin Herbert against a really bad secondary. While he might have put up the yards, 313 yards, having no touchdowns, wasn't all that great, and the Chargers really struggled to keep him protected. The Chargers run game, Austin Eckler, 12 carries for 58 yards. He averaged 4.8 yards a carry. He had a touchdown. Joshua Kelly also had a touchdown. Still not the best rushing game for the Chargers, 74 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. They did have 2 touchdowns. The other thing I kind of wanted to talk about, DeAndre Carter had a reverse that if it would have been blocked up just one player, if Mike Williams would have picked up the slot corner who was blitzing, and DeAndre Carter had a lot of running space to go and get some additional yardage on that play. Keenan Allen had 8 receptions for 86 yards. He had a long of 31, a beautiful catch down the left sideline on 9 targets. Mike Williams, 4 for 67, and Josh Palmer, 5 for 49. Wasn't too much to talk about with the receiving group. I feel like there was space. Justin Herbert was finding the open receiver, and the receivers were getting open. On the defensive side of the ball, Drew Tranquill had 10 total tackles. He had a sack, a lot of solo tackles, 7 solo tackles on Derrick Henry. That is huge. Alohi Gilman stepped up in a big way. And another player that I thought that really played extremely well was Braden Fehoko, playing nose tackle. That's a really, really good offensive line that the Titans have. And he was getting off blocks in a hurry and just making his way to the running back was great to see him go out there and have a great day. For the Titans offense, Ryan Tannehill was 15 of 22, 165 yards, had the one interception. He was under duress all day. Chargers ended up getting 4 total sacks on the quarterback, with 5 pressures by Khalil Mack, 3 by Kyle Van Noy. Kenneth Murray had 2 pressures as well. 16 total pressures for the defense, 4 total sacks, with Chris Rumpf, Drew Tranquil, Joe Gaziano, and Morgan Fox all getting in on the action. In coverage, I want to say Kenneth Murray was not that great. 6 receptions on 7 targets, only gave up 36 yards, had 1 pass breakup, but they were finding Okwonkwo, the Titans tight end, pretty much all game. He was their biggest threat of the day through the passing game. He had 4 catches for 54 yards on 5 targets. Derrick Henry was also a threat in the backfield, 4 receptions, 59 yards. Overall, the secondary held the Titans wide receivers at bay. Robert Woods only came away with 2 receptions for 12 yards. During the first quarter, Ryan Tannehill actually went out for a little while with an ankle injury. Malik Willis came in, had 3 passes for 20 yards. Overall, it wasn't that big of a factor because Ryan Tannehill came in pretty quickly, but I feel like the Chargers secondary really stopped the Titans quarterbacks from being any sort of threat at all. Your highest graded defenders is going to be Nasir Adderley. Nasir Adderley was kind of all over the field, finding ways to just get in on the play. Asante Samuel had an 80.7. Kyle Van Noy, back-to-back sacks and back-to-back weeks, 78.1 overall grade. And then Tyler Davidson, Braden Fajoko, 75 and 75. On the Chargers offense, a highest graded player was Zion Johnson. Zion Johnson was paving some ways, getting the ball carriers, especially up the middle, for those 2 touchdowns by Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly. Keenan Allen had a 74.8 and Jamari Salyer 73.6. Now, yesterday, the Chargers the NFL did release the Pro Bowl rosters. Only 2 players made the Pro Bowl roster, which is kind of what I had expected. Talked about a little bit on our last podcast, where I don't really see too many offensive players for the Chargers making the Pro Bowl. Derwin James is his 3rd time as a starter. The only 2 seasons he didn't make the Pro Bowl were the injuries years. He had injuries in 2019, 2020. And then Khalil Mack, he's made 7 of 8 total Pro Bowls, with the only season he hasn't made the Pro Bowl being last year when he was injured for most of the season. Justin Herbert is a second alternate. Hard to really fault voters when Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow are having such a great season. Herbert is having a great season. Don't get me wrong. He's had 3 4,000-yard plus passing seasons to start his career. Only player to do that. And he's going to destroy most of those passing yards through the first 3 seasons, with 3 more games left on the season. Austin Eckler is a first-team alternate as well. Hard to fault voters there. Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, and Derrick Henry are having much better seasons now, while Austin Eckler might have the total touchdowns. Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, and Derrick Henry are just more dynamic as pure rushers, and less as pass-catching running backs. So Corey Linsley is an alternate as well. Creed Humphrey and Mitch Morse made the roster over him. J.K. Scott, who's having really an outstanding season, one of the players that I think is kind of snubbed for how great the Chargers punt units have actually been this season. He is an alternate for Tommy Townsend, and DeAndre Carter is an alternate for Devin Duvernay, who just hit IR. I think there's a couple more returners in front of him still. Justin Herbert had his 5th game-winning drive this season. This time, 44 seconds left on the clock, giving Dicker a shot to win the game. Is he a Pro Bowl snub? Maybe, but with playmakers he's had this season and success really not starting to come until late in the season, it makes sense Each of the Pro Bowl quarterbacks this season are winning their division. Can't really fault anyone. Joe Burrow has 31 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Josh Allen's going to be the MVP this season, and Patrick Mahomes has a winning record and has had a healthier offense this season. Justin Herbert only has 21 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. The Chargers have had more kickers than they've had missed field goals this season. What a crazy stat for a team who has struggled with injuries to their kickers seemingly every season. Right now, Dicker is the most reliable kicker in the NFL. He can kick it out of the end zone on kickoffs. He's just been super, super reliable. Right now, I'm thinking about potentially trading Dustin Hopkins for a late-round pick and just sticking with the hot hand, clearing some cap space, having to hold on to players. You have to hold on to players who are outperforming, and you got to manage cap space. Dustin Hopkins is on a 3-year, $9 million deal. It's not a lot, but it creates some room, and with Dicker being the hot hand, the most reliable choice right now, I think it makes a lot of sense to go and hold on to him. The Chargers will be playing the Indianapolis Colts on Monday Night Football. I'm kind of surprised this game wasn't flexed or anything like that because the Colts are just not good. They're sitting at 4-9-1. They're third in the AFC South behind the Titans, behind the Jaguars. They are going through some quarterback problems. They ended up benching Matt Ryan early in the season. They gave Sam Ehlinger the reins. Sam Ehlinger didn't play all that well, and now they've replaced both Matt Ryan and Sam Ehlinger with Nick Foles. Nick Foles, I think, is a much better quarterback today than what Matt Ryan is. Colts are just going through a wheel of quarterbacks over the last couple seasons, going all the way back to when I can't think of their quarterback's name, that Justin Herbert broke all of his records, but then they went to Phillip Rivers and then Carson Wentz and then Matt Ryan and then Sam Ehlinger and then Nick Foles, and they just haven't been able to figure out their quarterback situation. Their starting running back is going to be Zach Moss with Deion Jackson and Jordan Wilkins backing him up. Jonathan Taylor did hit IR. He is probably their most dynamic player on the offensive side of the ball. I think a place where the Colts really struggle is at wide receiver. They don't really have a wide receiver one. Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce are kind of the same player, two X type receivers who are just kind of body players, kind of in that Mike Williams type of mold. Paris Campbell is going to be their slot player. He's a very, very fast Jets type of wide receiver. I think he ended up running in the 4.2s during his combine a few seasons ago. And then they also have Ashton Dolan and Mike Strachan. Mike Strachan, another 6'5" wide receiver, a huge guy. You can tell that the Colts really built this team to be a rushing attack, just having the big wide receivers, having the dynamic running back, guys who get out and block. Just hasn't worked out for them all that well. Starting left tackle is rookie Bernard Raymond. They still have Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith, who are probably one of the best players at their respective position. Ryan Kelly, really good center. They still have a pretty dominant offensive line. They might be the weak area there might be at left tackle, Bernard Raymond being a rookie, and Will Fries at right guard. Going over the defensive side of the ball, starting edge rushers are going to be Yannick Ngakoue and Kwity Paye. Yannick Ngakoue has been a really reliable edge rusher throughout his entire career, going from Jacksonville to Oakland, and now he is with the Colts. DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart are really stalwarts on the interior of their offensive line. They run a true 4-3. Zaire Franklin, Bobby Okereke are going to be their starting Mike and Sam linebackers, with EJ Speed in the middle. Shaq Leonard being that captain of their defense, that quarterback of the defensive side of the ball, is on IR. That really, really hurts them and the ability of what they want to be able to do at that second level. Shaq Leonard's probably the best linebacker in the NFL, just hasn't been healthy this season. At cornerback, they have Kenny Moore and Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore is a shell of a form himself, but he's still probably an above average starter at this point in his career. Kenny Moore, I think, is a much better player. He's been playing a lot in the slot for them and has been very, very good to start his career. And then rounding out the back end, Rodney McLeod and Julian Blackmon. Like I said, the Colts are just not good this season overall. Matt Ryan has 14 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. So he's been putting the ball in the wrong hands just about as much as he's scoring touchdowns, which is never good to see. He has taken 38 sacks on the season. He's thrown for 3,000 yards. Just overall hasn't been that great of a player. Through 11 games, Jonathan Taylor is still their leading rusher with 861 yards. No other player has over 200 yards rushing. They're just not going to be a threat at rushing the ball. Granted, the Chargers defense is not all that great at stopping the run. Zach Moss just hasn't really been great. That's probably a big reason why Buffalo was looking to move him before the trade deadline. They ended up getting something in return for a player who was drafted in the 4th round just a couple seasons ago. Leading wide receivers, Michael Pittman has 800 yards. He'll probably go for over 1,000. I still don't see him as a true number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, but he's a player who's been able to get it done. Only 2 touchdowns on the season. Paris Campbell and Alec Pierce are both rounding out 510 yards, 3 and 2 touchdowns apiece. On the defensive side of the ball, Zaire Franklin's got 141 tackles. He's been a really, really good player for them. Maybe not at the level of Shaq, but he's been able to be really impressive. Bobby Okereke as well. In terms of sacks, Yannick Ngakoue has 9.5. DeForest Buckner has 6.5. DeForest Buckner has a tremendous ability to put pressure on the quarterback from the interior. Not a lot of guys really have success at rushing in the A and B gaps. So when you have a player who can really push the pocket, make things uncomfortable for the quarterback, that's probably a good place to lean. The Chargers are going to struggle they struggle anyway with interior pressure. Matt Filer has been one of the worst graded, PFF graded pass blockers at the guard position in the NFL this season. And having him line up against DeForest Buckner is something that I'm going to be monitoring very, very closely because it is important to see kind of what's going on there. If anything, I think that's a place that we're probably looking to upgrade in the offseason, whether that's moving our starting left tackle to left guard. Something has to happen there because he just hasn't been good. Zion Johnson been okay as a rookie, still playing sort of like a rookie, but that's something we're going to have to monitor. In the game plan this week is how do we prevent that interior pressure on the quarterback anyways. There is a chance Joey Bosa may be returning from injury. He may be returning to practice this week, maybe gets activated after the Colts game. Another player who's kind of on the outside looking in, Rashawn Slater at left tackle, should be coming back to practice here within the next couple of weeks. So we'll have to monitor that as well. In terms of the game plan against the Colts, I think this is a game where you're probably going to be passing the ball quite a bit. Just taking a look at the Colts defense, it is much better than their record would suggest, but with no legitimate threat in the run game, I just don't see how you can lean on it, especially with DeForest Buckner on the interior. Yannick Ngakoue is a really, really good run defender. I think that you got to put the ball in the air. Joe Lombardi has not been great at drawing up game plans. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm really interested to see how Nick Foles plays. Nick Foles has been kind of a journeyman backup for most of his career, won a Super Bowl as a backup, as a starter, but he was a backup listed behind Carson Wentz during that MVP season that he had. But overall, I'm not really too worried about Nick Foles. Because I'm not worried about their wide receivers almost at all. I think that we're going to match up very well against them. Probably putting Michael Davis and Michael Pittman, just go big against big and let them battle out. I think Michael Davis has kind of earned that opportunity this season to go up against the opposing offense's best wide receiver. I think Asante Samuel can handle it as well, but if I'm just playing matchups, I'm going size against size. and I'll put Asante Samuel on the other side against Alec Pierce, who's a rookie, probably not getting the same number of targets overall. That's my game plan going into this. I think that the Chargers should win this game pretty easily. I'm looking at something like a 24-14 type of game. I don't think that the Colts are going to be able to establish any type of run. They really lost anything to really play for. They've been out of the playoff picture for some time now. They have issues at the quarterback position. They have a ton of injuries to key players like Jonathan Taylor and Shaq Leonard, are probably their best offensive and defensive player. I'm looking for Keenan Allen to have a great game. Justin Herbert getting a bounce-back game after having 2 interceptions last week. Overall, this is the Chargers game to win. If they do win this game, they should make the playoffs. That's just what should happen. But that's all I've got for this short episode. Hopefully we'll welcome Zach back next week, and we'll talk to you guys later.